Carlos, how you doing? And I like the backdrop there too. Already getting nice
Yeah,
and prepped for draft time.
absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, the draft it's in full swing on my end. It's really a year-round coverage event for me, so I'm constantly into it. But it's been really cool to see the major leaguers get going as well. That's obviously what we're most excited about. So it's been fun to see that too.
Hey, so I know AJ is excited to ask you about draft stuff. We're going to save that for the second portion of the conversation. So two things we want to cover is some prospect debuts, but let's actually start with a debut that's going down tonight. Dylan Dodd is making his debut for the Atlanta Braves. And AJ and I were talking earlier about how Atlanta seems to send out some pitching prospects that are interesting on a yearly basis now. Some of them highly touted, some not. There's been some injuries in the rotation, right, with Freed and Kyle Wright's hurt right now. So what are we getting with Dodd? I know he had a really nice spring training.
Yeah, Dodd is a really impressive player. I think for the Braves, especially, you kind of mentioned it. Anytime they draft a pitcher or take a pitcher, at this point, I'm just assuming he's going to be better than what we expect him to be. They do such an excellent job with their pitching development, and they just pump these guys out consistently. Dodd is a player who got a lot of really positive reviews from the Braves internally last year when I was working on their prospect handbook chapter. He wasn't the most famous name in the system, and obviously their farm system has thinned out quite a bit with some of the prominent graduations they've had. But one of the first things I heard about Dodd was just how impressive his strike throwing was. He's a guy who does an excellent job establishing the fastball for a strike, really allows that to set up the rest of his arsenal. There are players in this organization that have more explosive, pure stuff, that have nastier secondaries, but he might be the best pure command pitcher in the organization. And because of that, I was told, don't be surprised if he kind of breaks camp with the big league team next year. And we're seeing his debut today, which is exciting. He was not necessarily a terribly under the radar player coming out of college, but he was older. The COVID year gave him another year of eligibility. So he was treated as kind of a senior sign. He signed under slot during the draft, and the Braves actually put a lot of that money towards AJ Smith-Shawver, who is one of those players who has elite stuff. But I think Dodd is going to bring just very good strike throwing on the mound, very good poise, and three solid pitches in a fastball, slider, and changeup.
So, and we're betting folks here too, AJ and I. If we're watching this game, and I'm just looking at the line because I like to see what Sam GM's got on Atlanta and St. Louis here. I mean, the Cardinals are favored. They're minus 140. I'm not trying. I know that's not your job. I'm not trying to tell you to predict the world here, but really just for us to get some clues on what you'd expect from someone like him tonight. Do you think this is a guy that will have, from a personality standpoint, any jitters, or he's gone through the spring training run just now? And also, do you think Atlanta would have a chance of making some noise tonight against St. Louis?
Yeah, I guess Atlanta at any point can probably make noise against any team in the game. In terms of Dodd specifically, I haven't gotten the sense that he's this sort of uber confident pitcher that Spencer Strider is. Not to say that he's not confident in what he has. He just seems a little bit quieter than some other pitchers in the system that really exude confidence from a lot of the people that I've talked to within the system. And I think one of the biggest questions with Dodd, which he proved last year, was how does that stuff that he has play against upper level hitters? He struck out more batters than I think most people expected in AA and in AAA. His spring training was excellent. I think it was 80% strikes this spring training. So he's going to put the ball in the zone. But it's just a question of, is this stuff going to play immediately when he reaches this big league level? It's a very good Cardinals lineup. There are a lot of really impressive hitters, obviously, in this group. So it wouldn't shock me if maybe he got hit around a little bit. But at the same time, I think he's a guy who has enough confidence in his stuff that he's also going to be able to pitch backwards and use his slider and his changeup in counts that maybe you don't always expect a rookie to do that at the big league level. That's probably a long way of saying I don't know. It wouldn't shock me either way. But I think he belongs here. So I'm not sure. I would probably, I guess, lean towards the Cardinals just because it is going to be the debut for Dodd, and maybe the nerves get to him, and maybe he has a few pitches where he tries to put a little bit too perfect, and then you're kind of in the middle of the plate, and things could tumble. But I'm curious to see what happens.
Good contact hitting team too in the St. Louis Cardinals, so that doesn't always help the cause there. So yeah, I'm leaning towards the St. Louis direction, AJ.
So Carlos, you're saying that he hopefully will not pull his hamstring like Brandon Woodruff did in his debut, like he just told us about, and And I love your command comment. He doesn't have elite stuff. Command can win over elite stuff a lot of times, even against contact teams like the Cardinals. So I like that you said he has great command, because that tells me that he won't be nervous. He's used to putting the ball where he wants. Everyone's nervous in their big league debut, but maybe because he's not a power guy, his command will come through and help carrying him through some innings. So there's your betting tip.
Yeah.
Scott.
Okay, I still don't feel super confident about it, to be honest, AJ.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, that's why I just wanted to get the breakdown. So
Understood.
I'm going to lean a little St. Louis. I also think Steven Matz, stuff-wise, he's an injury risk sometimes, but I think he's going to have it.
Carlos.
Yeah.
We not only with Dodd, but we saw Terang hit the grand slam.
Oh,
Who are the prospects you are looking at that have either made their debut this year or will be making their debut rather quickly in the next month or so that we should be looking at?
Well, Terang has been a fun one since you mentioned him. I mean, he's been explosive. I think we all expected him. Another one where, again, kind of the hitting comparison to Dodd, where the tools were never super explosive. He's not the most physical player in the world. The power was always a question with him in terms of what's the weakest part of his game, but he was always just a super advanced hitter, had a great feel for the defensive side. I think he could play shortstop if there was a need on that team. I think he has the ability to be a plus defensive second baseman. He's a great runner, has played some center field as well. So he just does a lot of things really nicely at the big league level. It doesn't seem like the environment has phased him at all. That doesn't surprise me, kind of knowing Terang going back to, I think 2018 was his draft year. He's kind of always been very highly regarded. But seeing him turn on that home run, I'm curious about his power. I mentioned that being the biggest question mark for him. Last year, he had his best year in terms of power production. Now it's mostly to the pull side. And if you look at him, he's always been kind of a lean, more slender player. But I do wonder if he just has such an advanced approach and is able to barrel up the ball just enough to get to that 10 to 15 home run range at the big league level. Maybe he surprises people with the pop, and he certainly has the speed to take advantage of these new rules at the big league level. So he's one that you mentioned just right off the bat that I've been really impressed with. So that's the first one I'd point to. Another shortstop that I was really excited to see, who's already made his debut, is Anthony Volpe. Another guy going back to his high school days, was very highly regarded. And it is another player who I think at the time out of high school, he was seen as kind of this solid tools across the board, but really polished overall game, kind of leads him to help those tools play up. And very quickly in the minor leagues, it seemed like he got stronger, he got faster, the power jumped. And he's been really exciting to watch just on the bases. I don't know that he's fully gotten it going with the swing like Bryce has so far, but watching him steal bases has been a blast. And it's fun to see the rookie shortstop for the Yankees there as well. So a couple middle infielders who have been a lot of fun to watch in the early days.
Carlos, question for you about some teams and where they're at from a prospect perspective. So I was still high on Cleveland going into this season, not just based on what they did last year, but based on what's still to come for them. I think many people don't realize, it's a top 5 farm system in the game. So, and we just had Andres Jimenez on, who they locked up long-term. Ramirez is going to be there for a long time. The pitching last year was outstanding for them, and I know they got to get through the Tristan McKenzie injury, but still, solid rotation, bullpen lights out, and there's so much more coming. So I wanted to get your thoughts on Cleveland. I got one other team for you.
Yeah, Cleveland, I think they're undoubtedly a top 5 farm system in the game. I believe we have them number 3 right now. They might even be number 2. I'm not exactly sure where we have them. But what stands out about their system is just the incredible depth they have. They have, typically when we're ranking the top 30 prospects, once you get kind of halfway down that list in the 10 to 15 range, there's quite a significant drop-off just in terms of talent or the confidence that you can have in the projected roles of these players at the big league level. With Cleveland, you just keep going down their list, and it doesn't really fall off too much. They have an excellent track record of developing arms. I like the fact that they have an infusion of really exciting upside and tools, and Chase DeLauder, getting him in the first round this past year was really exciting. I feel like he was a player who, if he hadn't gotten injured, he had a foot injury with James Madison that maybe pushed him down boards a little bit, but they haven't really targeted players with this profile. And maybe it's simply because they've been picking in the back of the first round, so they don't have access to players like DeLauder, who has outstanding raw power and has just shocking speed for the size. He's 6'5", looks like a corner outfielder, but has played center field and played it pretty well. So them getting a hitter like this who has also a pretty strong track record of contact ability and approach, and he doesn't chase out of the zone too often. It's a smaller school guy, so there are questions with that. He still is battling back from some injuries, so hopefully he can get healthy and make his pro debut at the minors. But I'm really excited to see what they're able to do with a player like this, because a lot of the guys they've promoted and they've gotten to the big leagues are these contact-oriented, low power players. And then on the pitching side, obviously, they've done a great job taking command-oriented arms, adding a little bit of power, and they still have plenty of those players as well. Gavin Williams, I think, is going to be one of the best pitching prospects in the game. Daniel Espino is another one who has just tremendous stuff, and if we can get him healthy, I think he's got a chance to be one of the best young pitchers in the game as well. So they have no shortage of exciting players, and I think it's probably the deepest farm system in baseball right now, even if maybe you prefer some other clubs' tops compared to theirs.
Wow. And one more for you, which we've been talking about quite a bit, and because we had Woodruff on and we were talking about Terang earlier, Milwaukee. Because for a while, I think on the other end, I don't know if people realized how thin their farm system was. I mean, they were towards the bottom in terms of rankings, which really hurt them. You really weren't seeing much coming up for them, especially on offense. And it's been a team that has had that as the problem for the last several seasons. If you look at the rotation, you're like, this rotation can win a World Series. At one point, you said that about the bullpen. It's gotten a little weaker, of course, as they traded away a guy like Hader last year. But here comes some offense, and it's not just Terang. It's Joey Wiemer getting called up, and then Jackson Chourio might be my favorite prospect in baseball right now. So what do you think about the Brewers farm system as a whole right now, and are you bullish on their future and them making more noise in the Central based on some of these guys who are, and Sal Frelick, who are going to be an impact player, or at least most of these guys impact players this year?
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a ton of guys. Maybe Chourio, we have to wait a little bit longer on him, but it shouldn't surprise anyone if he becomes the number one prospect in baseball, just given some of the graduations that are upcoming with players like Gunnar Henderson and Corbin Carroll. But you're right. I think the Brewers are another team that has established a pretty good reputation as being a team that can develop pitching. The hitting is a question mark, but they've got a lot of really exciting, toolsy, skilled players at the top here. We mentioned Bryce Terang earlier. He entered the year as our number 4 prospect in this system, just very polished all around. Garrett Mitchell is maybe one of the more toolsy players in the organization. I think him and Joey Wiemer could probably battle it out just in terms of raw tools, but Garrett Mitchell is the top of the scale runner. Garrett Mitchell is fascinating to me because if he can elevate the ball a little bit more consistently, this has always kind of been the question mark with him. He has tremendous raw power. He's a really strong kid. He's got bat speed, but he's always put the ball on the ground a little bit more than scouts really wanted to see. Last year in the big leagues, he hit the ball on the ground less frequently than he had in the minors and had a really great stint. If he can kind of keep doing that, I think that's exciting. Joey Wiemer, him getting brought up, I think he maybe has the biggest question mark in terms of just the pure hit tool. With him, the swing has always been a little bit funky. I don't know if you guys have been able to see him much yet, but there's a lot of moving parts in the swing. He earned some Hunter Pence comps because of that when he was an amateur player. But just looking at the physicality, the tool set, he's got a massive arm. He threw out.
I don't know. I think we lost him. AJ, you hear him?
No, I think we lost his audio.
You got me?
Oh, he's back.
Sorry, how long was I gone? Sorry about that, guys.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was saying with Joey Wiemer, you maybe have questions about his pure hitting ability, but he's got tremendous power. He's got tremendous arm strength. You saw him throw out Daniel Vogelbach the other day trying to stretch a single to a double. I know Vogelbach isn't the fastest guy in the world, but just how quick he was able to get to that ball, reset his feet, and fire off a really good throw shows you what he can do on the defensive side. And then Sal Frelick, he's got a great bat, great pure hitting ability. He's really a spark plug kind of player. He's fast. He's fun to watch. He's a gamer. He's a multi-sport athlete. So they have a lot of really exciting players who are either making their debuts, kind of making their mark on the big league team now, or will in the near future. And a lot of these guys are up the middle types. I think all of these outfielders we talked about can play center field. So if you've got 3 center fielders running around the outfield, that's a pretty good problem to have.
Carlos, you've talked about these prospects. Let's get to the draft this year.
Yeah.
So I've read your articles. The top 4 guys are 2 LSU guys, Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens, and then Dolander from Tennessee and Langford from Florida.
Yep.
Who's going to go number one? Why is the SEC so darn good and they have all the players? And is there a high school guy that can slide in there?
Yeah, good questions. I think, first of all, I think this draft class is probably one of the strongest that I've covered in my time at Baseball America. Now, that only goes back to 2018, so it's not the longest track record, but all of those guys you mentioned are outstanding. I had a chance to see 3 of the 4 last weekend. LSU and Tennessee matched up, and maybe the biggest matchup in college baseball. I think if it didn't collide with MLB opening day, we've had even more eyeballs on it. But right now, we got BetMGM sponsoring the show here. So if you're a betting man, Dylan Cruz is probably the favorite to go 1-1. I think just his track record as a hitter, going back to his high school days, the combination of his pure hitting ability, his tools that he has. I mean, he's still hitting over 500. The college baseball season has been going on for quite a while now, and the fact that he's hitting over 500 is ludicrous. He makes outstanding adjustments at the plate. He's got power. He can run it down in the outfield. He's truly a 5-tool player. So I think the fact that he is a hitter probably gives him the edge in terms of being the favorite for 1-1. I think right now we have Wyatt Langford ranked number 2 and Paul Skeens ranked number 3. But I think right now it wouldn't surprise anyone if you heard that Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz are probably the favorites to go 1-2. And that would be the first time that a team has ever had 1-2 in the draft, which would be very cool. But Paul Skeens, I think, might be the best college pitching prospect that I've ever covered. I mean, he's averaging over 98 miles per hour with his fastball. Last week, he didn't touch 96 until the 5th inning. He's still sitting 99 in his 7th inning. He's started 7 games. Each game he's gone at least 6 innings, has struck out at least 11 batters. He's simply been dominant. The slider has improved this year as well. It's 3+ pitches or better across the board. And he's a huge 6'6", 240-pound right-hander. There's really not a lot of question marks that scouts have with him. I mean, he just checks every box you have. Wyatt Langford, I think, probably gets a little underrated just because Dylan Cruz has been so good and he's been so famous for a long time. But Langford has a similar tool set to Cruz. He's similarly been productive in the SEC with Florida. He maybe is a better pure runner. He's been very good. I would expect him to be off the board very quickly. And then Chase Dolander, he entered the year as our consensus top college arm in the class, and I think Skeens has probably overtaken him. But he's another player who has a great track record. I think his command, the history of just how good he is as a command pitcher, is one of the most impressive in the class. Another one with a fastball that's sitting 95, 96. He's had a good slider and a changeup and a curveball in the past. We're kind of just waiting for him to rediscover a bit of the sharpness that he showed last year that he hasn't quite found this year. But it's an excellent group of college players. And I think if you want to talk about some high school players to sneak in there, Max Clark and Walker Jenkins are 2 really toolsy, athletic high school outfielders that have a chance to kind of break into this group.
I love it.
So, hey, Scott, there's a name I want.
Real quick, who are you picking out of that? What did he sell you on?
Me? I'm taking Langford. I'm a Gator fan. Who the heck do you think I'm taking? Although Dylan Cruz is from Orlando, and I'm from Orlando, so it's kind of tough. I get it.
Yeah,
he's hitting over 500, which is insane.
Yeah, but you can't base this shit on where they're from, AJ. Like, if you're a GM, your damn job's on the line. You got to pick the next freaking Trout, Harper.
All right, I'm giving you right now, Scotty. I'm giving you the pick of the year for 2024 draft. The number 1 overall pick, and I think I know who Carlos is going to say. Who's going to be the number 1 overall pick? The next Shohei Ohtani is Jack Caglianone. Thank you. He's going to be the number 1 pick. And Scott, if you ain't seen this guy, look him up. He throws 100 from the left side, and he leads the league. It leads the country in home runs. So look him up.
From the left side.
Ohtani is the tag he's gotten quite a bit lately. He's pretty tremendous. Left-handed pitcher, first base outfield, tremendous power. I mean, maybe you could say he's been more impressive than Wyatt Langford, who we're talking about being a top 5 pick, and he's not draft eligible for another year. So I think that's a great call.
Is he from Orlando, AJ?
No, he's from Tampa.
Wow, a whole hour away. I'm down. I'm down to check out a game, though. We should watch him pitch and hit. Go. And all of that. I would love to check that out.
And Langford, Carlos Langford, 2 years ago, nobody even talked about him.
Yeah.
He was he came out of nowhere, and he had a huge year last year. Now he's there.
I was looking back at the notes I had for Langford out of high school, and I really just had one conversation with a scout, and he was like, good hitter, not a great body. That was it. He didn't play his freshman year. I think he pinch hit a few times. And then last season, he tied the program record with 26 home runs and was like one of the best hitters overall in college baseball. Last summer, he performed with Team USA really well. So he certainly put himself on the map after getting to college. He did not come into Florida with the sort of fanfare that Dylan Cruz came into LSU with, but he's certainly neck and neck with him right now. It's been fun to watch.
This is a fun conversation, Carlos. We'd love to have you back on sometime. And obviously, when draft coverage heats up, we'll be all over that too. Draft is July 9th through 11th in Seattle. Carlos Collazo, lead draft writer for Baseball America. And also, I wanted to make sure I got this in there too, because I've listened and it's great. Co-host of the Future Projection podcast too. So I wanted to give that a good plug. Give us a quick rundown of what the latest episode has in there.
We're working on one this week. I think last week we touched on, I don't really remember. The days have kind of.
What do you got this? What's coming up next?
This week we're talking a little Ethan Salas. He's been insane. The reviews we're getting from him are crazy. I know you guys talked to JJ last week and he broke down a little bit of Ethan Salas, but to hear about what a 16-year-old catcher has been doing in spring training and the sort of hands he has behind the plate, we're going to dig into him a little bit. But yeah, me and Ben Badler do that podcast. We talk pretty much nothing but prospects from the high school level to college to the minors and a little bit of big league talk as well. So that's been fun to do. And it's been fun to be on this show. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it was awesome to have you, Carlos. We really spanned the globe here from debuts to the next Ohtani in 2 years and all of that. So thanks again, Carlos. We'll chat again soon. All right.
Yeah. Thanks guys. Take care.
Cheers.